I call this piece My Somalia. See, we are the new generation. Some of us were born here, and others, much like myself, came here young enough to start school here. And it was the beginning of that 92-93 school year where I would first ask my mother for some new gear. You see, this was the beginning of my assimilation. The closing of a chapter for a generation who have seen much of their fellow peers here on immigration. And so I didn't need much time for preparation. As soon as I tasted this new environment, I realized this is where it started for me. See, what is it to be Canadian? Most would argue that Canada is such a culturally diverse country that anyone can actually look Canadian. Personally, my current nationality has a great influence and is a leader of the opposition in my battle within. An identity confusion that is a crisis indeed, Somalia in one corner, Canada in the other, going toe-to-toe, blow for blow. I claim Somalia with more conviction than United States courtrooms. But yet my homeland is considered by most the most dangerous place on earth, and it pleads and begs the question why. See, with all that I do not see going wrong in my homeland, I try to contrast the negativity by staying positive, being respectful, honest, being able to be counted on. In short, be just like my father. Because he himself came here not knowing exactly what to expect, and years later, he took the time to reflect and detect the problem. Even though Canada gave us refuge in a time when we really needed it, the cost of our identity was too great of a loss, for he is reminded about it whenever he sees me struggle with my language. A price we would have to pay, living life lavish, compared to home where the savage are less than average, but do most of the damage. Thank you.
Somalia, I wish the best. I hope it will recover, but I lost what I lost. I lost every man who gave me a name, who raised me, father, brother, cousin, uncle. Oh, we lost with no reason. We lost. I used to have a life, houses, like bungalows, and we left with nothing, with no reason. So the loss we lost in Somalia is very great. This place, at least, nobody going to come and say, get out of your house.
My life must be some kind of miracles, and not just me, a lot of us that are here, because there are a lot of people who have gone through much worse coming here. Like their story is more severe than me. I think mine is so much easier. But would we really, us here in Canada, will we survive 20 years or torment? I'm not sure. Those people must have some double heart, some kind of strong heart, to say the least.
I was born in Somalia, and I was about 3, turning 4 years old when I came to Canada. So I've been here basically my whole life. So I identify as being Canadian more than I do being Somali geographically, but culturally I believe I'm both. I'm both Canadian and Somali equally.
To be Somali for me is, I feel like it's everything that it is back home, just in a different place. Like, I've never been back home, but yet I'm lucky enough to live in a city where there's so much people from my country. There's a huge sense of community. There's lots of programs that run for my people. So I feel like I do get to experience what it is to be Somali back home, but just in a different place.
Today, at least today, I know who I am. And regardless what the public thinks, it doesn't matter to me because I don't live in anybody's space. I consider myself a citizen of this country. I love this country. So I don't have today any other place to call home.
We as Canadians generally like to think of ourselves as open to change. We aren't. We're as resistant as anyone else to change, and this is change. But our community changes a little bit, and the newcomers community changes a little bit, and then they come together, and then we're stronger. But we don't realize that that's what's happening. Most people don't realize.
Every community, when they come here, they have their own challenges. And talking to other communities, whether it's the Lebanese, Jamaican communities, there's the challenges when you come here. And we went through the challenges, but I think now it's at the time that we are that we take part in the society and start giving back into the Canadian society. And I think the youth who were born here mostly will adapt quicker, and I see them really taking part of whether it's in politics, whether it's in other part of the society. I think they will be leaders in the future, and you can already see it.
Youth in the poetry scene who are amazing poets, Capital Slam, who are participating in all the slams in Ottawa, and they're just amazing amount of talent. And I want that to come to light, because that's who the Somali community is. It's not the few negative things that the media portrays, and those things are only happening because any new community in any nation goes through challenges through the integration process.
But I will say the Somali community is very entrepreneurial. The people that I know want to be the masters of their own fortune. So they want to open businesses. They want to make their mark, financially and socially and spiritually. So I know that in about 10 years, 10 to 15 more years, they will be celebrated. But this is a rough time.
Discrimination in general is systemic. It's not just because someone dislikes you personally. It is part of a greater system. And the only way you can address those issues is if you understand it. If you understand issues of poverty, discrimination, whether it's racial or gender-based, you have to understand these things in a broader sense.
I know there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of it. But there's a lot of racist comments. There's a lot of things in the media where Somalis and Muslims are bashed, for want of a better word. But they're making our community better. They just don't, our community doesn't really realize it, but we're changing in a very positive way.
It's really not a matter of just finding a job at the end of your 4 years or 3 years of either college or university. We're past that point now, right? It's about a brighter future, not just for us as Somalis, but as humans. And really, you see a lot of discourse, negative discourse coming our way, whether it's through media or whether it's through policy. The only way you can actually fight against that is if you produce your own discourse. But how do you get to produce that discourse, and then how do you get to propagate it? You have to understand these things. And education really is the key, is to keep to understanding all of that. And I've said it before, discourse is power. And if you don't control it, someone else does it, and you can't complain then, because that person is basically putting her or his perception of you out there as a reality, as a fact. So whether you disagree with it or not really does not matter. Whether it's the truth or not does not matter. Once discourse is released and propagated, it becomes factual. Even if it's based on complete nonsense, it becomes factual. So how do you get to fight against that? You have to be a part of a broader system, and you have to understand how to function within these institutions. And so that's the key to education.
For boys, I'd say that's one of the challenges for them, is to prove themselves, and that they're not what people may assume they are. For girls, not as much, but like some girls go through the same issues, but I mean the girls that I've been surrounded with when I was a child was pretty much like just do what your mom says, and we never really had much challenges culturally. I would say like being born in Canada, but people assuming that you're not Canadian, that can be a challenge. It's like an identity crisis.
At home, your mother expects you to be pious, expects you to be modest, expects you to not show off your body when you're going around, expects you to, uphold yourself the way you should Islamically and in your culture as well. Your friends, your friends want to go to the movies, your friends want to go out, your friends want to go eat, your friends want to go hang out with boys or hang out with girls. And it's hard because you want to hide that from your parents, but there's so much you can hide, It gets to a point where it's kind of impossible, because as you grow up, you start wondering, why am I hiding this? Like, why do I have such a double life, right? Expectations at school, it's really different too, because you're expected to fit in, and you're expected to make friends, expected to have that connection with your teachers. University especially, you have to make friends in your classes. It's so hard to kind of get by on your own. So you have to be able to fit in, and sometimes it gets hard just to be yourself, right? You have to be able to become one with your surroundings, but how many ones can you be?
Well, personally for me, what my mom expects from me is to be able to, like, number one, to be able to speak the language. And luckily, you know, she taught me from, like, when I was a baby. That was one of my, like, I think I've learned Somali before I even learned to speak English. So that, I guess that kind of makes it easier for me, because, like, I already got one of her expectations, like, done. But I guess for others, sometimes it might be too hard for them, because they may not be able to speak Somali, or they may not, you know, like, I have some friends who don't like Somali food and just don't like any of that, and then their parents might expect more from them, be like, well, it's food we eat back home, how are you gonna take it when we go back home? That's all we eat, you know? So most of the time they just want us to adapt to our Somali culture, so when we do go there, it won't be a surprise. So like, their parents and our aunts and uncles can be like, you raised them well, you know, they haven't forgot the culture and everything.
You have to have your culture, but at the same time you have to fit in, and you have to become accustomed to the norms here, but you have to understand the norms at home, right? And it's kind of hard when you have pressure on one side from your parents, one side from your friends, one side from your peers, one side from your teachers, right? So it's not really defined. I can't really put like a box around it, but you have to kind of find that balance, and you have to be able to kind of juggle around your whole life and be able to make it all symmetrical.
You want to be a good person, you know, like in the Western culture and everything, but then you also want to follow your culture, you know? And since, like, I'm a child of both cultures, it's just hard to focus on, like, the right times to do one or the other, you know? But the blessing is, like, both cultures bring out so much of me that it really isn't a problem.
Parents should really come up with very important solution, because culture is very important. Culture is identity, and if the youth feel that they can communicate their parents with their language and culture, and these two cultures can go hand in hand, the Canadian mainstream culture and the culture, and the kids will be very comfortable in really going along with their parents and community.
In terms of our culture or Somali culture, it's more about getting it from your parents and the older generation, talking to them, getting close to them, because it is very important to learn from them, because you learn a lot from both our Canadian culture and the Somali culture, and I think they're not really in much of in conflict. I don't personally find too much conflict between them, because there's certain values in our culture that are very important to succeed, and there are certain values here that are also very important for you to succeed. So it's almost taking the positives of each side.
If you feel that maybe you can't relate to your parents because they don't understand what you're going through as a young Somali Canadian here in this society, talk to your older brothers and sisters. Talk to people that are a little bit older than you and they live in the same community, because they know exactly what you're going through. No generation goes through something so special that no one else can relate to. That's just, it's really, every generation feels like that, but the truth is from one generation to another, there's always things that it's like a pattern. It's cyclical, right? Things come and go. So that whole experience of being a young Somali Canadian, to our prior generations that went through it, and we know the pitfalls of belonging to simultaneously belonging to two different communities. It's a bit of a challenge, but you're not alone in that. So there's no reason for you to feel alone or to be so ashamed of whatever you might have done that you feel you can't talk to anybody. Because the truth is, no one is perfect, and we do not expect you to be perfect, but we expect you to be better, right? We expect each and every generation to do better than the prior one.